Hey, what's going on? I'm Daryl Spivey, and I've been waiting a very long time to say this. So I just left the theater and I saw The Batman. Oh my gosh. You all are not going to be disappointed when you see this movie. So I can't say enough good things about it. The action was there, the directing was there. Director Matt Reeves did a amazing job laying down the story for this movie, and he had a story to tell, and did he tell it? First of all, Robert Pattinson needs to be Batman going forward. In my opinion, he did such a better job than Ben Affleck. He is my Batman of choice if you're going to cast someone as Batman going forward with the story. Ironically, this story has nothing to do with the DCEU. It's because it's kind of its own thing. But I think if they wanted to, they could actually put him anywhere in the DCEU and he would fit like a glove. That's how well of a job that he did. Okay, so they had a lot of callbacks to Batman Returns, and a couple I saw in Batman Forever as well. And they did a great job in doing that. Also, they had an amazing score for this movie. Oh my god, the score for The Batman is so beautiful. I highly recommend checking out that soundtrack if you haven't already. It will blow your mind. Alright, so that's going to do it for the teaser in a sense. Turn back now if you don't want any spoilers, because I'm going to deliver some major plot points that are going to be spoilers for the story. Alrighty, so delivering those in 3, 2, 1. Alrighty, so here are the major plot points of the movie. So the story starts off 2 years after Bruce Wayne becomes Batman, and the Batman has such a grip on the city when it comes to fear that every night when the bat signal lights up in the sky, every villain or every gangster in the city is gripped with fear because they fear that he's literally everywhere at once. I know the trailers and everything tease that the movie is about vengeance, but no, the movie is actually about fear. That was actually the major theme of this story going forward. And you see that play out as the story goes forward. So the film starts off with a lot of tension going on. There's a lot of tension, and there's a crime scene that happens. And I think Commissioner Gordon was a detective at this time. He definitely wasn't in the commissioner point, because that role was actually in another cop's role, but he was actually corrupt and he actually played a little bit of a part in the story. So there are actually multiple villains here. So the first one being the Riddler, but the second major villain being Falcone. And the direction that they were going with Falcone was, he was actually a major crime mob boss that had a control over the city, and he basically had such a grip that everyone feared him. That's the first plot point. So the second major plot point is when Catwoman is introduced. She's actually introduced in a scene where Batman is interrogating, in a sense, the Penguin, played by Colin Farrell, which, by the way, they did an amazing job on Colin Farrell's makeup, because you do not recognize him as the Penguin at all going into this. So makeup in today's era in movies plays a big role, because you can cast whoever you want and make them look however like you want and still work with the dynamic of whatever style that the film is going with. So with that being said, Catwoman is actually introduced in the second plot point where she's actually working for this club that the Penguin runs. And the Penguin is a crime mob type of boss who's actually kind of closely in this inner circle of crime mob bosses that have a hold on Gotham City. And you see, as how the story plays out, you see why Catwoman or Selena Kyle is doing the things that she's doing, because one of her friends is actually a major plot point in this story. So, toward the middle of the story, you get to see why the Riddler is doing what he's doing. So, he's actually going after corrupt crime mob bosses, obviously, and corrupt city officials. So, his motivation in the story is playing out to where he's going after all these corrupt city officials that have something in common that were actually a major plot point to this one big crime that's going on in the city. By the way, Gotham City, they actually did a lot of the shots here in Chicago for the grittiness of Gotham City, which Chicago captures so well. I'm not even gonna lie to you with that. They did an amazing job with the shots. So, the major plot point of this one is you get to see why Riddler's kind of doing what he's doing, and you see where his story is actually playing out in this and what it has to do in the bigger picture. So, by the way, the new direction that they're going with Bruce Wayne's family and the new kind of DC EU, in a sense, is they're playing up more the fact that he is involved in a family that was involved in a lot of crime mob boss activity. So, for example, Bruce Wayne's father was actually running for mayor at the time, and there was a corrupt reporter that was actually gonna air his like dirty laundry out for like the whole city to see. So what he did was Bruce Wayne's father, Thomas Wayne, went to Falcone to kind of keep that reporter quiet, which actually ended up being that Falcone killed that reporter just so he could have some dirt on Thomas Wayne. So that's kind of where Falcone's kind of playing into the story of being like the second hand villain, because he actually controls the city and everyone kind of reports to him. So you actually see, as the story plays out, the focus kind of becomes more about Falcone's corruption as well as Batman finding who the Riddler is. So it's actually revealed as the story progresses that Selena Kyle, played by Zoe Kravitz, is actually the daughter of Falcone, which actually is a major plot point in the story going forward, because this actually ties her even deeper to why she has the motivation to kill him. So her motivation to kill him was he actually kidnapped and killed a friend of hers that she was actually trying to help get out of the city because she had dirt on Falcone. So as the story progresses, it's actually revealed that Falcone actually had the friend of Selena Kyle killed to kind of cover his tracks up, being that he was so deeply embedded into the crime of the city. So as Falcone's story is wrapping up, he was actually one of the major plot points for the Riddler to get rid of, and he essentially was using Batman to help take Falcone out in a sense. So he left Batman all these clues for these riddles to solve, and they directly connected to Falcone. So what the Riddler actually did was he strategically placed riddles everywhere for the Batman to kind of bring Falcone to justice. But the Riddler's idea of justice was he wanted to bring Falcone to the light. So what happens is, as Falcone is exposed and he's actually going to be taken into custody, he's brought outside and the Riddler shoots him. And that's essentially what happens. So one of the riddles was you need to bring Falcone to the light. So once Batman brought Falcone out under a streetlight, that gave the Riddler the clear shot that he needed to kill Falcone. So this kind of gives Selena Kyle, aka Catwoman, her peace because she didn't have to worry about getting her hands dirty with trying to kill Falcone because the Riddler did it anyway, thus kind of wrapping up the story between them. So, as the story progresses, Catwoman is trying to get Batman to kind of leave everything behind and come with her, and he's just not going for it. So they're making it obvious that they're tying up loose ends and that they're going in different directions. So kind of wrapping up where the story is going, it turns out that the entire time the Riddler knew who the Batman was, and he actually wanted to lure him to where he was actually being held because the Riddler actually set detonation charges around the entire city for it to blow, and he and Batman were actually supposed to watch it together according to like what he wanted, but it didn't actually happen that way because Batman actually kind of goaded him into revealing where he put those charges or what exactly he did, and the Riddler was just basically upset that the Batman was not on his side. So the last major plot point is the Riddler had some followers that were dedicated to his cause, and they were actually going to kill the mayor, who was actually running for mayor of Gotham City at the time, to kind of send a message that corruption in the city will no longer be tolerated. So they're getting ready to like shoot the mayor, which they actually do, but they don't kill her. And the last bit of the movie actually has Batman taking down the Riddler's sort of followers. And this is actually the last bit where they give all the action. They really put it down in this one. So the last major plot point that I wanted to discuss is the whole purpose of the bombs that were set off to detonate around Gotham City. They were actually going to submerge Gotham City in water. So what happens is the bombs go off, the city is submerged in water, and basically the end sees Batman helping local law enforcement save the city's people from being drowned underwater until the National Guard arrives to kind of like restore order. And even this starts to play into like real world events that are like going on right now, because it even says in the voiceover that Batman does, martial law is in place, there's crime that runs rampant, people take advantage where they can. That's just been playing up into like real world events that have like been happening around the world. And I thought that was kind of an interesting tie-in that they did there. Last major thing that they do to kind of wrap up the story is Catwoman tries to convince Batman to kind of come with her and leave everything behind because the city isn't savable, which Batman disagrees. And this is where the scene ends very poetically. They did this in a very poetic way. So Batman and Catwoman are sort of riding off in their motorcycles to the end, and they come to a fork in the road. Catwoman goes her way, Batman goes the other. Batman is seen looking in the rearview mirror at Catwoman as she's riding away. And the reason why this scene was so beautiful is because obviously the soundtrack was playing in the background, but it shows that they had two different paths in a sense. So the fork in the road was more so a metaphor to show just how different those paths that they were on. And obviously it was shown that Batman wasn't going to stray from that, even though he had the temptation to. So him looking back was kind of that temptation that he wanted to go with her, but he didn't. He stayed to his cause. And the movie ends just like that. So that was sort of the spoilers of this movie. I know I probably glossed over a lot of like little details there, but I kind of wanted to fit everything in that I could. So let me know what you think about my observation of the story and like, kind of like tie in anything that you noticed there. So if you found this video very informative, please like, share, subscribe. It would mean a lot to me. That's going to do it from me. Take care.